So with this interview, this is the first interview that I did with Turtle. This is the first interview that I did for episode one. There's no voice from me because I wasn't good at doing the audio thing, and obviously I may not have been better later. But this is the first interview. A lot of the questions I did ask were just clarifying questions, just trying to understand the situation. But Turtle does tell his story here. So listen up.
Yo, what's up, son? How's it going, bro? I'm doing all right. I'm doing okay. Hanging in there. Just got back from work. Doing my typical thingy thing. Just chilling. How you been, bro? How's your stream? All right. That's good. That's good. I'm happy to hear that. Yeah. Okay. Okay. All right. I also would like to preface like so I don't even think I told you, but some of the people that were implicated in some of those screenshots, they apologized to me after the fact. So two people in particular. Well, actually, no. One person in particular, he apologized about it, and it was Ballsman, who I'll get into later. But he apologized for what he did, or the role that he played in, like basically putting that lie on my name. Just to preface, yeah, yeah. All right. So, so, so it was kind of considered that for a time, but then, like, surprisingly enough, like imagine like the people or like the owners of the server basically said, "Yeah, we're not really feeling it anymore. We're gonna basically like we kind of moved on from six, this, that, and the third. So let's not talk about six." Or in a server where we basically created a server for him, which I thought was pretty ironic. Like they said they moved on from him. I can't really, be upset. That's them, but it just felt weird. I There were a couple of people who were there like in the earlier days too who were a part of that server that got banned or just left because it just wasn't like the vibe wasn't really good in there that much. Um when I was first put into that server, it was actually after I lost to six in in multiverses and people were basically like, talking shit about me and I kind of felt bad, kind of hurt my self-esteem, and thankfully OCD he like took me up by the mantle and like put me in that server. At that point in time I wasn't really like talking much. I still was in the server but I wasn't talking. I barely used Discord around that time. It's actually like a year ago since I think that happened, actually, believe it or not. And that and like I basically like took a hiatus from basically watching six or even engaging with six for that time being until like August, early August came around, and that's when I started trolling six on Call of Duty, and that's when I started making a name for myself and garnering attention off of trolling six, if that makes sense. And like things were going smooth, things were smooth sailing, things were going good. I think things started to feel weird, and like it started to feel weird around like November ish because that's when like I started to get hints that like one of the people in there, um, Violet, she typically has an attitude problem. I'm not the first one to say this. A lot of people can vouch for me that like there is an attitude problem with her, and it's how she talks. Me, if I have a problem with somebody, I try to go with them in DMs and try to discuss it with them and try to tell them, "Yo, what's up?" I think what was said was that like I guess there was going to be a call with one of Six's moderators, Bings and whatnot, and I was like joking, saying like, "Oh, let me in on the call. I just want to like run amok or whatever, something like that." I kind of forget what I said, but she said no, too many people and whatnot. And I was like, "Boo, buzzkill!" Like just to like lighten the mood, just to be funny. I don't really try to go out of my way to insult people like willingly, but she said no and added on saying that, and even if that did, like me and my associates trolling is better than yours. So it's felt like a personal jab, and I was like, okay. Like she was saying, like if I want to be a buzzkill, I tell you that your trolling is bad, and I was like, okay, that's weird. Like I'm kind of like be joking with you and whatnot, but for you to like be like that way, that was kind of weird. I brought it up with Violet in DMs, and like basically the entire thing was that he basically said that's a you problem. That's how I talk, and there was no accountability taken for how she talked. And I was like, okay, whatever, you know. But it felt weird. And then, like soon later on, throughout November, I started. I wanted to do a 6v6 against and like six of his people or whatever in a 6v6 match. Some other people in that server also wanted to do it at the same time, and I made a server about that. And you know, some of the sentiment, Vile included, basically like, "Oh, there's no point in having this server, this, that, and the third, right?" And I was like, okay, whatever. Oh well. Doing like move on further down. Basically, um, there's a person by the name of Kyoto. If you don't know who Kyoto is, yeah. So the whole purpose of the revolt was to get a bunch of evidence on Six to be used in an expose video. However, it started to garner more attention when people like OCD and more popular trolls like me, Kyoto, and Virgo, to name a few, were like the earlier trolls, started to come through and like make a name for ourselves and basically like rep the revolt in a sense, if that makes sense, right? No. So basically, the server, the Six Erican Revolt, was founded by Too Tall Taylor and Rox's Rokusasu. Yeah, and Rox's Rokusasu, I believe. Um, I would more so talk to Rox's Rokusasu about that. Um, but that's basically how it was. Um, Mainly, you if you want to get in, you'd have to talk with the founder or whatever to get in, or if it was like someone that was notable or had like a lot of pull, they could just invite them and they can be put in there. That's what OCD did. I wasn't really aware of certain drama that was happening beforehand. I was kind of just like lollygagging, mind my own business. I didn't really know much about any online drama from like I'd say November down, aside from OCD getting doxxed by um, Six Erican and like maybe Violet not liking Kid Panda much. So there was that, and so that was kind of what I know about the revolt. Really, like I made a couple of friends there. Like that's where most of my friends came from when I started trolling Six. That's where I got most of my support from Six, if that makes sense. So there was that. Then um, I like I try to be amicable with people. Like I try not to like run amok. Like I try to be friendly with people. That's just how I am as a person. That's how I am in real life. But I try to be amicable. And that's kind of where I was at. Um, there was leading up to like that event, like around like I'd say like early December ish, late November ish. I basically, when I can recall, Kyoto found out that Six was like most likely gang affiliated, and Kyoto wanted to give that information to Violet and them. So I basically made a group chat, right, with them for Kyoto to give the stuff to him, right? And I guess there was that, and Violet I guess didn't really like being put in group chats that much, and basically left. That rubbed Kyoto the wrong way because it was like it's pointless to have him in this, that, and the third. You could have just sent me the screenshots, and I was like, okay, touche. But I figured, let's be more personable. Let's talk with people. Let's not try to go through like a certain bureaucracy and trade things up. Let's talk with people. That's kind of how I roll. You know. Um, and so that rubbed Kyoto the wrong way. Kyoto eventually did get into the server, and didn't really talk much in there. Um, then around that time, I guess Kage wanted to possibly send a Trojan virus to Six Erican's PC, and I was like, and I was like, well, at the time, it sounded like he was, and to be frank, like I'm not really big on like committing crimes like that, dude. So I was like, yo, Kage, you don't want to do this, man. Let's not do that. Come on, let's be reasonable. Let's not be rash. Like that's kind of how I was thinking. Because it actually seemed like he was actually intent on doing it, the reason why I felt as though he was intent on doing it is because he went out of his way to ask Kyoto, "How do I do this, that, and the third?" And then, yeah, yeah, the Archangel, yeah, the the age group. So primarily, it was mainly like for the Revolt server, it was kind of like it kind of was limited to minors, but it was only limited to minors that probably had an interaction with six that can be documented. But it was mainly 18 plus, from what I could remember. I'm not so sure about. I'm not so sure about it. I'm kind of shaky on it. I would, I would probably because I haven't been in that server in a while. It's probably defunct. It's not really active as much. But that's from what I remembered. So I could be wrong. So just take. Yeah, there's and with like some outliers there in the mix. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Low tier Rybar. So basically, from what I gathered, when I first interacted with Kage, this was through a mutual friend of mine, White Reaper Zero, or or Zero Covenant God, who you may know. Basically, I was in his server and I was kind of like chill with him, and Kage ended up in that server, and I was like, why is Kage here? This is kind of like with Kage nuking my server and whatnot, and I was so confused as to why. I didn't really know. This was after my first server, like my original first server, got nuked. I was confused. This was around Christmas time when my server got nuked, or a little bit before. Um, Kage initially thought that I manipulated low tier Rybar into leaving the Revolt server. However, at the time when I got banned, I basically said that, like, dude, um, I was feeling a plethora of emotions, but I really felt deeply that, like, this is starting to become like a Sons of Kojima type thing. It's like we're being told what and what not to do when it comes to trolling six, and I thought that was really shitty. And so like I didn't really have anyone to talk to, and I just kind of hit up some people, and Lotier Rybar was one of them. And I just told him like, hey man, if I was you, I'd leave that server. It doesn't really seem like it's gonna be going too well in there. It's becoming an echo chamber, you know? No, he didn't leave. He basically talked with Violet and a bunch of other people, about how I basically told him like, oh, how I made him feel bad about being in the server, and they put it in his head that like I was manipulating him. And so I guess they're getting lost in translation. For some reason, Kage said that I manipulated Rybar while he was drunk. However, I'm not able to know this because one, I didn't hear any slurring of speech. Like I wasn't hearing any slurring of speech. I can't really smell anybody's breath through like a phone. I can't really do that, and I didn't really hear any slurring of speech, so it was really hard for me to indicate whether someone was intoxicated or severely intoxicated to that matter. Because if they're able to formulate sentences and talk, I'm assuming they're sober and coherent. You know, if I would have known, like exactly, like if you're able to formulate sentences with me and able to respond to me and not slur your words, I'm gonna assume with confidence that you're not inebriated. You know, so, mhm, mhm. I basically told them that it was like an echo chamber. And the thing is that they were like, you shouldn't have someone basically tell you how to basically like, if you want to stay in the server, you can stay in the server. That's your choice. But you shouldn't let Turtle. But they was like, you shouldn't let Turtle dictate if you should stay in if you should stay in the server or not. And like I didn't. I suggested it, and that's the thing. But it's like the entire thing is that the narrative is being spun that like I'm a bad person and I don't take accountability for anything, and that's what was kind of pissing me off, right? So yeah, yeah, no, exactly, and that's all I gave. It wasn't like I like was blackmailing him, telling him to leave the server. It wasn't like I was. It was like I like on everything I love. I'll put this on my life. I didn't do anything to that man. I didn't say anything crazy to that man. I was just like gave him a suggestion, gave him my opinion, gave him my 2 cents. Because where I was at, I was in a bad state. I felt alone. I felt like I got abandoned by the people that basically took me in, and I didn't. And I felt like I wasn't accepted by my community. That's where I was at, realistically, at that point in time. Like like I was ostracized, and then it only was made worse when I kept on seeing the shit talk that was happening behind my back. Like it was like, dude, why are you talking so much shit, man? Like you would think that like how I moved, you'd think that like I basically like did something crazy to them to elicit a response like this. Yeah, yeah, exactly. However, the thing is, the only outlier is that Kage is in his 30s. Kage's in his 30s. Only Kage's in his 30s. Violet is like 20. Violet's 23. Like people like reckon they're 25. Like I'm usually the younger person in this scenario. At the time, I'm still 20. Like I'm 20. Most of the people that I was kind of having an argument with, they were either at the youngest a year younger than me, and that was one person by the name of Two Shots, and then the rest were either my age or older. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Exactly. 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 Yeah, like yeah. So Rat King in his own right, like he's I don't really know how to put. I'm not really familiar with some of the people in your community because I'm basically giving comparisons to those type of people. But Rat King is kind of like a wild card in a sense. He's kind of like he'll say whatever and whatever, but he isn't really like engaging with Six. He's not trolling Six. They kind of do a lot of things behind the scenes. Um, they'll have their opinions. They'll move on from Six, but everyone's just kind of like I said, they moved on from Six, but they just kind of like are in their own little clique. That's just kind of how it is. Rat King, from what I know, I don't even know how he got into the whole thing. I'm not really familiar with his lore like that. So best case, I would ask Roxas. Roxas is like if there's without a doubt, Roxas would know more about Rat King than I would because I didn't really delve into the Rat King lore that much. What I do know is that Rat King did have some controversy with him basically like harassing a minor or something or telling a minor to basically do something, basically do something that I can't really say depending on if it's live or not, but that's basically what happened. And a lot of people didn't really like that because it was kind of like, what the hell? No, they were saying that no, because it was about Rat King harassed a minor apparently, not like sexually, but just like or just like said something along the lines of like just kind of told a minor to do something or something like that. I'm not so sure. I'm not really so sure. I'm not so certain. So take what I'm saying about this with a grain of salt. Okay. I would implore you to ask Roxas about this because I'm not so certain about it. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. But through yeah, but through my experiences with Rat King, like, and from what I experienced, like through interacting with him, especially in the Revolt server, I was at first shocked because as a because I'm black. Believe it or not, I'm black. I may sound white, but I'm actually black. Like, but like and one of the things that really kind of made me feel a little bit iffy about Rat King is when like in the Revolt server, um, he's a white dude, but in the Revolt server it says like, oh, no racism, this, that, and the third, no homophobia, but Rat King sounds clearly white and is just saying the N word, like not hard R, but he's saying the N word. But the thing is that like it flies under the radar because Rat King is a founder, and the thing about the revolt that really was like annoying was that if you tried interacting with one of the founders, you were inadvertently interacting with three out of the five founders, which was in total Too Tall Taylor, Roxas, Rat King, Violet, and Two Shots. Two Shots, Violet, and Rat King are kind of three peas in a pod. If you interact with one of them or piss one of the three of them off, more likely they're gonna know about what you did to one of them, and they'll probably fuck with you back. That's just kind of how it is. Um, like that's just through my experiences. Through my experiences. So like Violet's server. So funnily enough, Violet had her own server, but she ended up basically merging her server with a dude named North, who also had an anti-six server. At the time, there were there were like a bunch of, like, at the time of the revolt, let's say when I joined, there were a bunch of anti-six servers, but people were coming from different places and didn't really know which one was the peak or the, like, pinnacle of, like, anti-six trolling or whatever, or anti-six detractor, or six detractor rather. So I guess there was some issue with North server, I guess, and Violet basically merged North server with her server, from what I remember. But for some reason, I think Violet kept tried, and I think is still keeping her server, like, not, they don't really talk about six much in her server. It's just kind of more so about her, which, it's her server. She can do whatever she want. I don't really care. That makes sense. You don't really want to talk about six much. You know, that's just kind of how it is. You know. So I'm like, okay. Um, but that's primarily where Violet's server is mostly about. Yeah. Like, can you repeat that? Can you repeat that again? I'm sorry. Like, oh, so this is regarding the ethics of trolling, right? So the thing is that I was basically telling Violet, like, look, dude, like, you may consider something too far, but some people don't, and you just have to accept that for what it is. And she's saying, no, that's racist. And I'm saying, that's what you think. That's what you think. Like, in a philosophical standpoint, I can understand, right? From a philosophical point, I can understand, right? Like, oh, this happened, like, this is too far, but some people don't think that that's far. Like, same way some people in LTG's trolling community find some things too far and some things not far enough, you know and I was just saying, like, some people in LTG's community are okay with people calling them the hard R, some people aren't, and that's okay. You just got to accept it for what it is, though, because that's what's going to happen. There's no, how can I put this, there's no, like, laws on how to troll somebody effectively. And that's what I was basically arguing. That we shouldn't be arguing the ethics of trolling. Like, come on. This is, like, stupid. We shouldn't be, like, policing how to troll somebody and if it's bad. You're saying, oh, being racist is, like, trolling. I'm like, well, I'm not saying, in my opinion, I'm not saying that is trolling, but I'm saying other people are going to think that is trolling, and there's nothing you can do about it. And you can't change their opinion on it. I'm basically telling her that, like, people are going to have their opinions like they have assholes. Everyone's opinion is different. You have an opinion, so do I, and so will the other person who thinks that spamming the hard R to six or any other area of the locale is funny. Just how it is. That's all I was saying. But whenever I get into these things, like, Violet made a statement saying, like, I think you should get an IQ test. I'm like, well, why are we trying to insult people? We're trying to have a conversation. And then it's like a backpedal into, oh, that's just how I talk. It sounds like a you problem. And it's just like, we're having a decent conversation. I don't know why you're getting upset about this. And so she, and so the thing is, like, this is when I basically made the second server, and Roxas kind of let them back in. But this is when Violet, like, left, and she basically said, "Oh, I'm sick of Turtle's antics and him thinking that, like, the lack of, like, common sense." And just like, dude, the thing is that I have no issue with how people talk. Like, the thing is, I have no issue with how people feel about me, but I'll be damned if you go after my community. Don't go after my community. If you have an issue with me, that's okay. You can have that issue with me, but don't try to, like, rope my community in it and try to say that I'm this, that, and the third. I've basically been made out saying that, like, oh, I am, I can't take accountability or whatever, this, that, and the third. But then, or I can't, or I'm being childish or this, that, and the third. And I'm just like, no, dude. It's just that like you're talking a lot of shit, and that's what happens. You know, like there's no need for shit to be talked. And so, and the yes, yeah, yeah. No, no, dude, no, no, dude. After the Rybar situation, he really felt that way because even because in the screenshots that I have implicated, it literally says, "Oh, so you don't remember?" He basically told me I backstabbed you for Rybar. His words, not mine. His words, not mine. So that was his boiling point. The tip, like the melting point was when the whole thing with Kyoto happened, and Kyoto basically like lashed out on him, and then I basically let Kyoto into the server, and he kind of spoke his piece, and then he left, and then they banned me because of that. So I was like, okay, okay. So I was like, he left. He left. He left. He left on his own accord. He left on his own accord. I let him back in because if he was already in there, he left on his own accord. I was like, okay, I'll just let him back in. He didn't get kicked. He didn't get kicked. He didn't get kicked. So I was like, okay, well, if he left on his own accord, then I basically invited him back in, and that's just how it is. So that's where I'm at. Like that's how I'm feeling. Like it's like that's just kind of like what it is, you know. However, yeah. However, the thing is that what people fail to realize is that like what there's a lot of hypocrisy that happens. There's really a lot of hypocrisy. Um, that's just how it is. There's a lot of hypocrisy, and they give a lot of people chances because most of that server is basically a whole clique, and a lot of stuff goes unchecked. And the thing is, because no one tells them that, hey, you got to stop. It's just kind of like they're just like they just think they can do it. And so I made my server the second time, and this time I really like went all in. I got people in, and I started making a community again. You know, I took my time, and I was happy. I was letting people through. I was letting people in. We got some Glazers in there, but they got kicked out. Such like this, that, and the third. You know, that's just what it is. And so, like, when that whole entire thing about like the ethics of trolling came through, that was in my second server, right? I kept on doing what I had to do, kept doing my thing, chilling. Then I tried to get people to restream six or watch six in the stream. I wanted to bring people together to just watch the stream and just come together and just laugh. That's really ultimately what I want to do. Like, I kind of wanted to, I'm not going to say that like I'm going to be capable of making a symphony. That's just how I know that. But I at least want to I just want to have people come together and enjoy a restream and laugh. You know, that's just where I was at personally. And that was my goal. Like, Yeah, I have a third one. Do you want the invite? I can send you the invite into the third one. All right, I'll send you the invite. Uh, yeah, yeah, and he basically, and so yeah, and so like I didn't really know who to trust. Kage was kind of one of the few people that I could trust, and I had him basically hold my server for a bit so that I can like take some time to myself and just like go on vacation. I literally saw him nuke the server in real time, and I tried calling him, and that's where I have some of the screenshots of him basically saying, "Oh, he tried calling me while I was nuking it," and that's when he invited, Rat King, Violet, and all of those people into the server, and that's where Violet was kind of like, "Oh, I had no part in the nuking of the server." How I took it as if she was just being snarky, and she was just kind of rubbing it into my face, and was just wanting to watch it happen. And so the thing is that I'm a person that forgives and forgets, but not forgives and forgets, but I'm a person that forgives but doesn't forget. And I forgave. I just am not going to forget it. You know, because life's too short. This is internet shit. I could just make a new server. It's just annoying that I would have to make a new server, but it's okay. I don't really use Discord like that, so I didn't really care much. It was when the second server came through, I was just kind of like that's just kind of where things kind of took a turn. No, the person that messed things up, it was not Hockey SSBU. So let me, yes, it's Amelia. So the thing is when you look at that screenshot, you would think that I sent an invite directly to Amelia, but that's not the case. I sent an invite to a different account that I thought was Hockey's account, Hockey SSBU's account, but it was a Glazers account. When I found out that it was a Glazers account, I banned them. Over time, they still had that name, but then they changed it because their main account got banned. So this is where I mean, where like there's a lot of like without context, it looks bad, but I had to explain it in a way where people could understand it. Let me just go back and like just look at it for like my perspective, right? So basically, Amelia H014, Glazer, we nobody likes them. I think you can kind of say that it's like the equivalent to something along the lines of like think of I don't really know if there's like a LTV Glazer that you would like know that's like goes around just like harassing other like trolls or whatever, but just think of something like that. Yeah, so think of like Dreddy. Think of like Dreddy, but like kind of more psychotic, right? So I wasn't really thinking much. I added them, and I actually went into a whole thing with the other mods regarding that matter. And I found out that it was Amelia. So he banned them. There was nothing to be said about it. It was just like, okay, it was an accident. I didn't know, right? And at the time of me investigating this, Rat King, who is also like, close friends with Vi and like Two Shots and all those other people, was in the call when I was investigating this. That's why I have that thing right there, right? So basically, basically, that was kind of what I kind of called it was a cover up story or a scapegoat, rather. Half assed one at that. And it was a good kind of scapegoat too, but it had to be explained away. So I even have Rox's vouching for me, saying that like I didn't intentionally invite the said Glazer into my server because this all stems from basically one of my closer friends, Kudro, basically telling Violet like, "Hey, you don't need to be an admin in the server anymore." And they took perms away. I took perms away, and they were like, and I basically got like, heavy handed or hand over fisted, basically told like, oh, we need Violet in the server because Violet does a lot of mod things. I'm just like, she doesn't got to be an admin. She can just be a moderator. I don't really need a lot of admins. What do you guys need admin for? It's not really much to do. You know. So, so like I said, this is kind of just like, things getting misconstrued and turned to make me look like a bad person or a person that's like not trustworthy. So I'm like, what the fuck? I'm like, what the hell? I'm like, what the hell's happening? I'm doing my own thing. I'm trying to do what I can, and then this happens. So I don't have screenshots of what happened, but what I do know is that, in the screenshots that come next, I basically show like, oh, that's the conversation that happened between Kudrow, Violet, saying that like, oh, like you're just not a mod anymore. We don't really got to tell you why. That's just Kudrow saying. Because the thing is that like, believe it or not, this is probably like my fault too, because I did a lot of self reflection on this too. But it was more so like me just like not having any backbone, basically saying, no, this is what I want to do in my server. I don't care. But because I wanted to keep the peace, I just kind of like folded, you know? Because I just wanted to keep the peace. I didn't want there to be any fallout, you know? And so, you know, they're basically mad over what Kudrow said to Violet and how it made Violet mad. And so to give context about this, because I ended up having a call with Violet between Violet and Roxas about this, and Violet was basically saying like, "Oh, I'm not the one that was at fault for it," and you could say like rightfully so, like not really rightfully so. She wasn't directly at fault for it, but she played a role that made it look like if I was at fault for it. Um, when I basically had to nuke my second server, basically what was said is Violet basically made an announcement adding everyone into my server, stating that I invited glitches into my server. There was no text between me and her or anyone else for that matter, basically saying, "Oh, why? Did you mean to invite them?" No. Usually they would go into people's DMs. They would go into people's DMs. I know for a fact Violet would do something like that, but Violet didn't do that. So I was like, okay, that's weird. And so I see that like, oh, they're using those screenshots. I'm like, what? I didn't mean to invite her. And then I started piecing things together. I was like, oh, that's what happened. So I had to basically, dig myself out of a hole. And not only that, they unbanned some of the people that I had banned in my banned log, and just basically unbanned them and invited them back into the server, and they just ran rampant. And on top of that, they had the notification bot, and they basically deleted every other notification and put in basically Amelia's channel as on the notify me bot. So I was like, what the hell? So I'm like, what the hell? I didn't do this. Because at the time, I'm getting ready for school. I'm getting ready for school. I'm getting ready to go to my classes. I don't have time to be doing all this stuff. This doesn't benefit me. But the thing is, they tried to bank off of the fact that I had to go to school and this would be happening while I didn't notice. But I was watching this happen like in real time, and I was like, what the hell? So I couldn't be bothered. I'm in school. I can't be bothered. I can't be going through all the trouble to have to ban these same people, then unban them and whatnot. So I just deleted the server. And that's the same. And basically, the whole entire thing about it against me is that, oh, if you know it's not true, why did you delete the server? I couldn't be bothered to do it. I couldn't be bothered to deal with it. You know, why would I have the server up if I have glazers running rampant, people that aren't really supposed to be in my community running rampant in my own server? And on top of that, having somebody make a lie on my name, that doesn't make any sense. And mind you, this could only be this is all over being told that you're just not an admin anymore in someone's server. This is over a Discord rule. This is literally over a Discord rule. This is in simplest terms. This is literally over a Discord rule, and they just didn't like how they were talked to. And so that was basically the whole thing, right? And the thing is that the thing is that Ballsman and Violet. Well, no, Ballsman used his server as a hub to get people from my server into Violet's server. So Ballsman put the link to his server in my server before I nuked it, and some people from my server got into Ballsman's server, and then the narrative that I had glazers put in my server was spread. And that's why certain people, and that's why if you look into the screenshots, that's what I mean by certain people saying that I was this, I was that. But in some of the screenshots, you can see two shots basically admitting to putting to unban two shots and Ballsman actually admitting to contributing to unbanning and putting all that stuff in my server. And these are people within Violet's community. And the thing is that like, you know, if these are your friends, you know, I think you should tell them like, hey, let's not really do that because that'll fall back on her. But the scheme was so elaborate, or they assumed that it would be too elaborate for me to, defend myself, that they just went with that narrative that I invited glazers into my server. And that's why I said in the screenshots above, it's showing two shots admitting he put Amelia's YouTube in the notify he got, as well as a hint that he may have unbanned said glazers, and were aware of what was happening and didn't do anything about it as a way to teach me a lesson, in my opinion. And I basically said this is the crux of their methods, bullying people into making that person's server their own server with them as the head honcho. Because paradoxically so, when they said that, oh, the Revolt server is not really active as much because we moved on from six, you don't have to mod for my server if it's about six. Like, I'm not, like I say, hey, like, hey, if you guys want to mod, you guys can mod, but you guys can say you don't want to mod anymore. This is free will. You guys are grown adults. This is Discord. This isn't like a job, you know? If you don't want to mod, you don't have to mod. If you get sick and tired of it, you don't have to mod. You can just say, I don't want to mod anymore. You know? Like, you have that free will. You're grown enough to say that, you know? And that's what didn't really make any sense to me. It was like, you know, people tell me to act my age, but no one wants to act. But when they are told to act their age, it's like, no, you're the one that's at fault. And that's what was really pissing me off. There was like no accountability being taken. And so I went live regarding the matter, and basically, like a person by the name of Moogle Fantasy, he told me, hey, let's not do that. So, I was listening to Moogle. I kind of I privated the live, but I didn't delete the live because I was going over what I was saying. And some people from Violet server, they were just, trying to troll me. I didn't really care much. That's just kind of how it is. I didn't really care much. Just whatever. They're just trying to get under my skin. I didn't really care. But that's just kind of what it was. And the thing is, think about this. If you say son, I want you to stick with me here. Follow this logic with me. If you say that you don't want to do anything related to LTG, does that mean that you would be a mod in, let's say, LG's server, knowing what LG does? But you would be a mod for a troll of said LTG troll. So you don't want anything, right? So that doesn't make any sense, right? Why would you want to be a mod in my server when you said that you moved on from six? That doesn't make any sense. And then I'm in your server and you're talking shit about the people that are watching the restream in my server, saying that, oh, they're obsessed with him. If you guys have an issue, because again, they would say this in voice call. Well, I'm there, and I just kind of stay silent because, like, I just was trying to keep the peace. But in hindsight, I'm looking at it, I'm just like, if you guys had a problem with who was in my server watching that stuff, why do you want to be a mod in my server? Because not only that, they alienated good parts of the people in my community. People like Cuban Iron Man, right? Cuban Iron Man and Kyoto, right? They gave Cuban Iron Man and Kyoto the Glazer role because apparently they always were wanting to troll six. And they said, oh, you're just as bad as a Glazer because you want attention from them. That's alienating. What's the matter with you? You know? but they don't see it as that. And so, and I'm gonna like backtrack back a little bit. That whole thing with where Rat King was kind of harassing Kyoto about the whole entire thing, that was because Kyoto, Kyoto, he had information on Six being gang affiliated, and Rat King was trying to pry him of information. Kyoto at the time was in the hospital. Rat King didn't care. He still wanted the information from Kyoto. If you read the screenshots that was sent in there, he didn't want to come to me. He would rather come to Kyoto, who was in the hospital because he hurt his back. Could have been paralyzed for all we know, but didn't care because Rat King cared about what evidence Kyoto had. You know, you know, like it's like, and it's just like, but the thing is that because it's not because the thing is it's not going to tie on to them. No one's going to call them out for it. They think it's okay. I tried calling them out for it, and now they don't want to fuck with me much, right? So there comes that, and I basically make a couple posts on YouTube basically airing out all the screenshots because there's no accountability being taken. So I was like, okay, if you guys don't want to take accountability, I'll just bring it to YouTube and have it just be the court of public opinion. If you guys don't want to admit to it, right? There are people that were vouching for me, and again, if you don't know who Violet is an ex Modest Six American, right? So it's just yeah. So is Roxas, right? So the thing is that imagine like being friends with LTG Rocks, but they were just British and they had a control issue. That's basically it, right? So for me, I'm just a troll, dude. I don't be doing all this shit. I don't have time for it. I'm in college. I got school to worry about. Dude, I had a job. I trolled six. I got good grades. Was in sports. I'm a STEM major, bro. Like, I'm a STEM major, I do sports, and I have a job, and I do good in school, and I have enough time to troll somebody and interact with my community. What? But there's always going to be a hater, and I had to understand that. It was hard for me to understand, but I just had to understand it. And so, you know, all that got aired out. Violet was basically saying like how, oh, that's not really like, I didn't really have a part in it. Stop adding me, this, that, and the third. Like, you're getting mad over Discord. You need to grow up and act your age. And I'm just like, well, dude, you basically are friends with people that basically contributed to the nuking of my server, and yet you don't want to take any accountability or hold the people that you are friends with accountable for their actions. So now I'm bringing it to the public because you don't want to acknowledge it or bring it up to the public. The way like the way they talk is crazy. Danny Banter, Danny Banter is Balls man's, by the way, for reference. Danny, yeah. No, so he's basically talking about a server that I wanted to make where anybody can come through and basically look at any evidence that Six Erican has done, and they can use it against them so that people can have it. It's kind of basically making a Dale dossier, but on Discord for people to see. And anyone can come through. You wouldn't be able to do anything. You wouldn't be able to type. You wouldn't be able to do anything. All you could do is just look at the evidence. And the thing is that I tried to add a thing where you can talk in it, but you had to get like vetted in order to talk. But it kind of fell through, and then it got nuked. And the thing is, Baldman was upset because he spent a lot of time trying to do it. And quite frankly, I felt bad because there is a time difference. He is in the Middle East, so I can understand. He spent a lot of time trying to make it good, and it had to get nuked. So that was a lot of work of his wasted. And I felt bad, and I said, I'm sorry, man. That's all I can do. Like, And then there's this mob character who, right, like, he's just like a weird individual. Like, I'm not gonna hold. And it was basically just like me kind of like letting him back into the server, even though he was kind of like spamming Balls Man and Violet's DMs at the time. I was kind of like, I'll tell him to stop. If he does it again, you can ban him. That's basically how it is. And then like, he got banned and whatnot. And so that was kind of the whole entire gist with Mauve. And the reason why I didn't like Kudro is because Kudro was being condescending towards Violet. And the thing is, if you get into an argument with Violet, you can clearly tell that there's a attitude with her. And if you and like even through text, you'll understand. Hell, I can even show you like sometimes where she texts people, like the way she talks to people. It's like really, it has like a really pugnacious undertone to it. It's really a matter of the fact, and it's really condescending, and as if she feels as though she is like above you in a sense. And when Kudro talked down to her, she didn't really like it. She kind of got a taste of her own medicine, as some would say. The thing is that at the time, I told Kudro like, hey man, like I try to strip perms, but then I basically get because again, Violet's Circle basically became mods. I realized this. Violet's Circle basically became most of the mods in that server, and it basically became their server again, not mine. I wanted to take control back, and I talked to Kudro about it because Kudro, I could trust him. He's not with Violet Circle. He's an OCD Circle, and I talked with him, and I was like, "Hey, man, like, I really need some help here. You know, can you just like do this for me?" And he did it. And and the thing is, Kudro doesn't give a fuck. He'll basically tell it to you straight, and he won't care. And the thing is, and the thing is, Violet didn't like how Kudro was talking down on her, similar to how a lot of people didn't like how a lot of people didn't like how Violet was talking down on them. It was kind of poetic in a sense, if you think about it. But from like to you, it makes sense. Yeah, 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 yeah. Basically, because you can even say like she said this was the last straw. Yeah. Oh, so okay. So such as plan. So basically, I wanted to make my own like private server with me and my IRL friends, and I also wanted to do something with like some other people that weren't really in Violet Circle that I wanted to do on my own. And the reason why I was basically saying that I basically like alluded to the fact that I was clicking something and they were trying to prime me with information. I was like, it's nothing crazy, but they took it as me basically going behind their back trying to do something shady when I wasn't. I just don't have to tell people what I'm doing. Like exactly, like I wanted to make something for my own, and I basically copied the layout to the server, and they thought that I was trying to basically like take their hard work or whatever. It was really stupid, man. Like I couldn't even like begin to tell you how stupid it was, but it's whatever. That's honestly what the sus ass plan was. Yes, and most of her crew basically got upset, and I kind of just wanted to show how two faced they were through other screenshots. If you read those screenshots, that's how two faced they were. Like it was just like at a drop of a hat, like at a drop of a hat, like that. Like it was like clear. I don't even know, man. I don't even know because you'd think you'd want to help out in my server, like you would just like, and then you would just say some shit like that, and you just change like that at a drop of the hat. Like you just believe any narrative that goes. Like if I like let's just say like like let's say like we were like you, me, LG, and like Roxas were a whole group, right? And let's say like LG like did something to me, and like I basically tell a lie to you guys, and that LG did this to me, and then like we just like ostracize LG and just like make fun of them off of a narrative that I spun, and you didn't think for yourselves like, hey, how did this happen? It was just like off a whim. You just changed just like that. That's just kind of how it went. And so like I didn't put this in the server, but when I had that call between Violet and Roxas, right? Violet, she suffered a loss in her family, and she said that I was grieving the loss of a family member, right? And I didn't like how you added me, right? Now, you know, to be frank, I was sorry for her loss, but it just sounded disingenuous to basically say that like, oh, I had lost a family member, so I acted this way, this that. Like, it kind of felt like she was trying to deflect blame, saying that like she was going through so much, and she acted away. And the thing is that like I went through something too. I suffered a loss too, but I didn't use that as a way. I didn't use that as a reason to why I did something, and that's what separated me from her in that scenario. Because I don't have to tell people what I go through, but I went through a loss, and it just hurt even more when she said that because it was like, damn, you know, I'm sorry you went through that loss, but so did I. But I try to be kind. I told her sorry for her loss. I didn't think I got a sorry for your loss back from my end. She probably did say it. I probably forgot, or I probably didn't hear it. Who knows? But basically, the whole narrative that they spin is that like I'm just a crybaby. I play victim. I play the victim card all the time. This, that, and the third. Like recently now, like there's BS between like some of my new mods and some of the people in my server now because there's just like we're just trying to get rid of a lot of fake people because like in some of the screenshots like some people just talk a lot of shit about people behind people's backs but act differently when they're in your face, you know. And like when you bring it up to them it's like different. No, exactly. It's just something you do, and the thing is there's a lack of accountability, and the thing is that I'm not going to say that like I'm lying on people, but the only person that apologized was Balls Man. He apologized. He said, "Dude, I'm sorry." And the only reason why that happened was because there was a call with Roxas where we kind of like took Roxas out of my server, and there was a whole spat with that, and Violet and all of them and my mods were talking in there. And after the whole entire thing was, like rectified, Ballsman apologized. Ballsman was the only one who apologized. It admitted that, like, what he did was wrong, and that he went too far. And that's where I'm giving credit where credit's due. You know, you know, like right now, it's like, you know, my mods have their own reasons as to why they don't like certain people in my community. Like there's not in my community, but in like the entire community as a whole, they have their beefs with people, and there's some other spats happening with them, like you know, like there's that happening, and how Violet basically threatened to basically say like, oh, well, if that happens again, I'm gonna release those screenshots, and I won't hesitate to do so, like stuff like that. Like that's just kind of how it is. Yeah, yeah, dude, I don't really like, dude, like, I'm gonna be honest with you, like, I do this shit for fun. If I didn't, like, and the thing is that, like, if I wasn't having fun, I wouldn't be doing this. Have fun doing it. Like, I was really like, dude, when I tell you, like, when I was trolling six, I didn't think that, like, most of LTG's trolls would know about me. I'm being so serious. Like, and, like, I know I keep on saying this, like, to my own horn, but I was surprised. I was like, oh, hey, guys, I'm Turtles. And people were like, oh, Turtles, you're that guy that trolls six Eric, right? I'm like, what? You guys know who I am? What? I was shocked. And I was shocked by by the love that I got from it. You know, like that's the type of shit that I live for. I love community. I love closeness. I love being able to laugh at people. I know it can be annoying sometimes, but like that's kind of just like who I am as a person. Not perfect. Like for real, I started like my first exposure was to six was through multiverses because that was the only game that I knew how to play because I wasn't gonna try and get MK because I didn't really like MK. But I played him in multiverses and I kicked his ass in multiverses. And then like I lost him in multiverses and I took a break and just played him in COD instead. And that's how I basically made my name. Mhm. Mhm. Oh, yeah. And I'm like, bro, I implore like dude, I implore you to talk to Violet because like if there's anything that like you want to run by me again, I'm glad to. Like, cause cause like cause like not only yeah, cause like not only that, cause like not only that, dude, like you're not gonna hear this from me, but like I made a server where I have most of the like popular six American like YouTubers like Chicken Warlord, Fearless Gamer Girl, OCD. I have them in my server, and they're in my server. And OCD left my server because of Violet. Uh, like like there's Violet also has a knack for basically making saying things that alienate a lot of people. She thinks that people like OCD keep Six American relevant, which I think is idiotic because if that was the case, like that's the same thing as like you guys keeping LTG relevant. No, we're just laughing at them, and that's what like no, like yeah, like no, like it, like exactly, like it's a slippery slope. I get that, but it's how you look at it, and it's like it's a damned if you do, damned if you don't situation. Same like with any locale in particular. Yeah, we can ignore the locale, but there's also the chance that if we ignore it, then he'll just get garner a following even more and more, and go unnoticed and fly under the radar. Or or we can cover him, make content about him, troll him, do the same thing, but people can laugh at him. And that's the issue that many lolcows face, even with any lolcow, LTG6 Eric and DSP, any of that. You know? No, for real. No, like I'm being so serious. Like, oh yeah. Speaking of which, even this is also another thing that also rubbed a lot of people the wrong way. Um, I did a stream basically talking with one of the brothers of a 17-year-old girl that Six Erican actually harassed for 5 months. And the thing is that like, Violet brought up some good points, saying that like, oh, if you knew that this was happening, why didn't you why'd you allow it to keep on happening, this, that, and the third? And I was like, okay, yeah, that makes sense. But at the same time, I'm like, okay, this is a minor we're talking about. Like, it's Six Erican. Six Erican is an adult. He should know better. He should know not to interact with said individual. That is a minor. He was 17. Like, that's literally the running gag that people tell Six now, is that she was 17. Same thing with how, people tell LTG that Elena was 17 and he was 29. So, like, it's like, and like a lot of people, it rubbed a lot of people the wrong way, because it was like, why is she defending him? Like, it was kind of like that's what a lot of people told me, but I said, hey, she's bringing up good points. Let's let her talk. You know, but a lot of people did express that towards me after that live was done. Like, I know for a fact that like if you do talk to Violet, that there's probably going to be some mention of who I have as mods and what they do and what they represent and how it falls back on me. And quite frankly, like as she told me, I like she told me in VC that she can't control what her mods do, and that's saying, and like, that's reasonable, but same thing as to what I can't control my mods to do. I can't control my mods on what they can and cannot do in most cases, in some cases, and I just want that to be known. Yeah, man. Yeah, man. Like, quite frankly, dude, it's just like, one thing I will say: if you hate me, you hate me. Like, I don't really. I'm not gonna go through the whole entire like kit and caboodle about everything. Like, you hate me, you hate me. If you don't, you don't. That's just how it is. Like, I'm kind of just at a point where it's summertime. I'm not really online as much. I'm enjoying the weather. I'm enjoying my time outside. Hanging out with friends, doing what I got to do for myself to make sure that I'm all right. And I don't really got time for this internet stuff. I'm here for a good time, to enjoy time with friends, make a community, foster community. And if you don't like me, man, hey man, that's on you. That's on you, man. Yeah, yeah, man. Yeah, man. You too, bro. You too. Be easy. Yeah, no problem, bro. Peace.
Shit they did.
How much, especially
Hey, son.
hey son,
All right, I'm ready to play.